All right, Harmony Science Academy students, for honors geometry, go ahead and get ready. We're looking at the fourth quarter, our first lesson, and title it section 3.22. Okay, for inappropriate, the name of the lesson itself is trigonometry. Take some time, title that. And here we're going to give you a couple of minutes to go into Google and look up these definitions. Okay. Now, don't be intimidated. Trigonometry is very advanced, so the definition you come across might be advanced, but just, again, get somewhat familiar. Okay, get familiar with the word adjacent and refamiliarize yourself with the vocabulary word hypotenuse. Okay, and we'll continue together. All right, so what are we going to do here first? The first thing we're going to do, okay, before we actually get into the lesson, is we're going to appreciate what you already know so that this lesson isn't as advanced as it can be, okay, as you will see it later in Algebra 2 maybe, for sure in pre-calculus and all the way up to calculus, okay? But since this is geometry, we're going to see it at an introductory level. So if you can really put in some effort here, it's going to pay off for the next couple of years big time. This is very difficult for some students, not for you guys, okay? Okay, so we're going to be dealing specifically with right triangles, okay? So notice that right now, there's nothing new to this lesson, okay? A right triangle, we've seen them. We're labeling the angles uppercase A, B, and C. Okay, and what else are we comfortable labeling? Okay, the sides lowercase letters. Okay, now before we even start this lesson, okay, officially, there's stuff that you already know. Okay, now you definitely know that the longest side is the hypotenuse. Okay. And you can just watch right now. We'll pause the video in a bit so you can jot this down, okay? So hypotenuse, we're going to use the letter H to abbreviate it, okay? That you know, you don't need this lesson for that, okay? Now, the word adjacent basically means next to, okay? So, you know, next to the hypotenuse, we could say is AB, right? And AC. So I'm pointing that out because adjacent can be tricky. So always leave adjacent to the end, okay? Now, here's the thing, okay? We're going to be dealing with the word adjacent and the word opposite. Okay, so opposite after hypotenuse is the one you really want to focus on. So it's got to, when you hear opposite, you need a reference, right? So here's what we're talking about. We're talking about, let's say, a theta, okay? A theta is just an angle measure, okay? So if we were looking at theta, we'd ask ourselves, okay, what side is opposite? Okay, and in this case, it's C, to theta, okay? So we're going to say opposite equals, and we'll put a line through it, okay? So we don't get confused with O's and zeros. So we'll put a line through it so everybody knows, okay? This will be our language here, okay? So then by default, this one would be adjacent, okay? Let's see here. We can call it A. Now, again, we haven't even talked about the lesson, but if we look at theta, okay, right? So it's this angle here. What sides are adjacent? Okay, we can say B and A. Okay, A though is the hypotenuse. So again, if every time you look at a triangle for this lesson, the first thing you want to do is identify the hypotenuse. Okay, done. Then you want to look at the angle that they're referencing. So here's theta, and identify the opposite, and then label it opposite. Okay. And then whatever side's left over is your adjacent, okay? And all you have to do is look at your angle measure, your theta, and be like, hey, is this side actually adjacent? Okay, it is. Good. So I'm okay, right? Technically, this is adjacent, but it's got a more important and a more proper name for this context of hypotenuse, okay? All right. So again, the lesson hasn't started, but this is stuff you guys know. Adjacent means next to. Here's theta. This one's next to. Mister, but this one's next to too. Okay, but you should have called it hypotenuse from the very start. Okay. All right. And in case you guys get confused, right, for some reason with these two, with some more advanced triangles, always look at theta and be like, what side is opposite? Once you identify it, label it. And adjacent should be kind of your default, okay? All right, excuse me. So, now let's talk about the lesson, okay? So, in general, okay, there's no such thing as this, but just kind of bear with me here, okay? Let's see here. We'll call it, okay? This is my language, okay? In general, okay, this part right here is the trigonometry, okay? When you see something written in this form, this is the trigonometry, right? As you guys looked up the definition, sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, cotangent, okay? That's the lesson, okay? This theta is just what you guys know. It's an angle measure. And when you take an angle measure and you apply trigonometry to it, all you're being asked to do is get the sides, okay? So now you never have trig, right? We need to put in where I have trig here. You need to, okay, I'll underline it. Where I have trig, you need sine, cosine, or tangent, or the other three, secant, cosecant, cotangent, but we're not going to do those other three, okay? So if you're a little lost, bear with me. What actually will go here? You're going to have sine of theta, okay? Like you guys looked it up. You're going to have cosine of theta, and you're going to have tangent of theta. For this lesson, that's it. If you guys have if including your definition secant, cosecant, and cotangent, great, but we'll leave that for your more advanced math classes later, okay? All right. So now, okay, you guys already know stuff, okay? Important stuff, opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. And because you know that stuff, you're going to be able to master this lesson pretty easy, okay? So if I ask you, okay, let's just kind of draw here a triangle for reference. Okay, let's say theta's right here. And we'll say we have A, B, and C. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is, okay, understand that this trigonometry on this theta is basically asking me to identify on the triangle immediately hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent, okay? So just the fact that I'm dealing with a triangle and they're asking, and we're talking about a theta, and it involves trigonometry, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my triangle and I'm going to quickly label what I know. What is it that I know? This right here, okay? So you guys can actually, we might pause the video here and have a discussion, but right now, let's go and just move forward, okay? So the first thing I do is what had I talked about is identify the hypotenuse of the right triangle, okay? So here, I'm simply going to call it H, right? The next thing, okay, should we identify adjacent or opposite? Okay, if you said opposite, good. So here's theta, opposite is B. So here's that with a line through it. Okay, just for now, opposite will have an O with a line. And then by default, A is going to be A. But this A is for adjacent. Okay, all right. So how is that going to be useful? Well, when it comes to sine theta, what they're looking for, in terms of theta, they're looking for two sides. Okay, the first side, okay, is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. Okay. If we're looking at a triangle and they're talking about a theta, but they say, hey, give us the cosine. You're like, oh, they're talking trigonometry, so they want a fraction, two sides, a fraction of a ratio of two sides. Okay. So in this case, it's going to be what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay. And when it comes to tangent, okay, so this is a lesson. If you don't know, there's a reason. It's new to you, okay? But here's for very important stuff for your notes. Every time that they're asked for tangent of a theta, that means you go to the theta, and it's going to require you to give them opposite over adjacent. Okay? This part's very important, so we'll have that in your notebooks. Now, okay, you're going to have basically triangles that look like this. So let's go ahead and label these two triangles. Okay, just so I can point something, a very important detail. Okay, it's a right triangle. It's a right triangle. Okay, the theta will be located in two places for you guys. It's either here or here. Okay, it won't be on the right angle. Okay. That can be done at a more advanced level, but for right now, all you guys know is, hey, we have our right triangle, our right angle, and theta is going to be either here or there. Okay? And does it matter? So let's also go ahead and label these bad boys. A, B, C. Okay? So right now we basically have the same triangle. Okay? The only thing is what? That we are, okay, addressing a theta, okay, namely angle B, and over here, this theta is angle A, okay? So let's do a couple of things here for your notes and to really take the lesson to a different level, okay? So check this out. We're going to do sine, cosine, and tangent on both of these thetas, okay? And the whole point in this, okay? Now I could put theta, but since I have two of them, it'd be better to call this theta B, okay? Or angle B. And what do you guys think I should call this one? A. Okay? Alright. Now, we're taking some time to get this lesson started, but once we get it's incredibly fast and easy, okay? So, again, if you look back at your notes, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, okay? So what I should do here, okay, before I even get started and to avoid mistakes, check this out, okay? We were encouraged, I encourage you guys to follow that same protocol, which is what? To identify hypotenuse immediately, okay? This is the long side. Next, it's what? Opposite, good. So I go to theta, and in this case, opposite is over here, okay? So this is going to be opposite. Over here, is this opposite theta? Okay, good. If you said no, good. This is opposite theta. Okay, and by default, this in this scenario, it's the same triangle, but in this scenario, this is our adjacent. And in this scenario, this is our adjacent. Okay, that's what I want you guys. The hypotenuse didn't change, but because theta did change, our opposite and adjacent did change. Okay, relative to those specific. So if it helps, we'll call this theta 1 and theta 2 because they're different scenarios. Same triangle, different angles. Okay? All right. So now, because I've taken the time to draw the triangle as it is given to me and include my information, look how easy this is. Sine, okay, of this theta or sine of angle B, right? Look at your notes. It's opposite over hypotenuse. So it's what? Opposite over hypotenuse. So B over C. Okay. Cosine, look at your notes. It's adjacent over hypotenuse. So it's A over C. and tangent is opposite. Look at your notes. Okay, let's look at them together. It's opposite over adjacent. So now that I've done all the work, I'm enjoying how easy this is, right? It's opposite over adjacent, so it's B over A. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here, okay, and this is opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, same thing from the notes, opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse for cosine, and opposite over adjacent for tangent. Okay, so you guys are going to get faster and faster at this, and you'll be in a good place moving forward. Okay, so sine, opposite over hypotenuse, that's, I look for him over him, so it's A over C. Okay, notice that there is a difference because of theta. Okay, now in terms of cosine for this theta, okay, I need what is it, adjacent over hypotenuse. So here's adjacent over hypotenuse, so B over C. Okay, notice that there is a difference, and there should be. Okay, and lastly, tangent is opposite. Let me double check my notes. It's opposite over adjacent, so we have opposite over adjacent, so A over B. Okay. A over B. Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and give you guys some time. Make sure you got your notes. Now you've got your notes. Now we can definitely get into one of these exercises. Okay, we're gonna do 2 of them. That's all we need. Okay, the hard work's done. Now we get to cash in. We're gonna do 1 and 17. Okay, 17 just because those problems are a little more advanced, but basically the same thing. Okay, and I'll prove it. So we're looking at this one. Okay, the first thing you're gonna do on your notebooks, okay, if you want credit, is you're gonna have to draw the triangle and then add your own information. Okay, so 37, 35, 12. Here we go. Let's see here. So this is what your notebook should look like. Okay. And then I think that was what, X, Z, and Y. Okay, and they want tan Z. Tan Z. Okay. All right, so this in black, you're basically just gonna take what's on the worksheet and put it on your notebooks. Okay, and by the way, just like this. Okay, so if you want credit, this is what you'll have. And in addition to that, okay, what I'm gonna have here in red, you can have it in the same color, but this is what you're gonna add to the problem. Okay, so this is given just like this. Now Z is this angle right here. Okay, so you're gonna actually put the theta in there. Okay, and now that we have the theta in there, let's go ahead and identify opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. Okay, but the order is what? Hypotenuse first, okay, the long side. Then after that is what? Is it adjacent? Okay, good. It should be opposite. So here we're gonna have opposite, little, okay. And just FYI, okay, this is more of a this kind of bad boy, okay. And this is really just an O, and we're putting a line through, just so it looks like something other than a zero or something. Okay, all right. And then by default, so we have our hypotenuse first. Okay, I'll even draw a little number 1, number 2, and then number 3. Okay. So if you're gonna want credit, make sure that you have this information provided. Okay. After that comes the easy part, right? Tangent, you look at your notes, and it's not opposite over hypotenuse, that's sine. It's not adjacent over hypotenuse, that's cosine. It's opposite over what? Adjacent. So now you just plug it in. Okay, so who's opposite? Okay, this bad boy, 35. And who's adjacent? Okay, 12. done. Okay. In case you're kind of messy, just box it in and you'll be done. So again, very easy exercise. Keep in mind you're performing something that's going to get more advanced in your future math classes. So you really want to master the basics here. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to, where is it? To 17. Okay. Now, I think 1 through 14, notice that it's all the triangles are kind of in the same position, okay, which is easy on your eyes and you'll be doing fine. Then at 15 and after, the triangles are going to be moved, okay, they're going to rotate. See if they can play a trick on your eyes, but you're going to stay disciplined, okay? So here for 17, okay, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. We're going to copy the problem down. So what do we got? 24, 32, 40. Okay. I have to come back to it again. Something like that. I'm guessing that's 90 degrees. What else we got? Whoops. Okay, 24, 32, 40. Okay, this is 17 again. Exactly like this in your notebooks. Okay, let me just look at it one last time. They want sine of z. Okay. Okay. So that's what you guys will easily transfer onto your notebooks. Okay, so you can actually use your notebooks. Now let's go ahead and add the information that we know. So they're talking about z, so here's z, here's the right angle, here's z, okay, so we can put our fancy theta symbol, okay, and let's go ahead and go through the same sequence, okay. I want to identify hypotenuse, done. Theta, across from it is opposite, little circle with a line, okay, and the default is adjacent, okay. So now that I've done that, I look at my notes, and for sine of z, okay, or actually all sine involves opposite over hypotenuse. And according to what I have illustrated here, I've got 24 over hypotenuse is 40. And of course, you guys know to always reduce your ratios, your fractions. So this, what's the greatest common factor? It's 8 times 3. 8 times 5, that cancels, and I'm left with 3/5. Okay. All right, guys, you'll be flying through this. Appreciate your time. I'll catch you in class.